intensely hot and bikes were crashing left and right. Hello everyone, I'm Larry Myers and this is Motoworld. The event I was just describing sounds like a demolition derby in the sweltering summer heat. Well, for all practical purposes it was. Unfortunately for the participants, they all were under the impression it was a road race. Pat Gonzalez reports on a crash-marred round 3 of the Canadian Superbike Series.
This is Shannonville Motorsport Park near Belleville, Ontario, Canada, and the site of round 3 of the 6-race Castrol Canadian Superbike Series. Points leader number 11, Michel Mercier, would start on the pole position after winning Saturday's qualifying heat race on his Yamaha OW01. Mercier's teammate, number 21, Pascal Picot, would start alongside on another Yamaha, with Jacques Gannett, 999, third on the grid, also Yamaha mounted, and Jeff Gaynor, number 228, on the Suzuki Canada machine on the outside of row 1. In Sunday's Superbike final, number 11 Michel Mercier took an early lead, followed closely by number 21 Pascal Picot, 999 Jacques Gannett, number 1 Steve Crevier on the Kawasaki, and 228 Jeff Gaynor aboard the Suzuki 750. Mercier and Picot cleared off just as they had in the 2 previous rounds at Saint-Air and Shubenacadie, where they finished first and second. Picot ran off the racetrack midway through the race and was back on, but in 4th place. At the halfway mark, it was 11 Mercier in the lead, number 228 Jeff Gaynor in second, 999 Jacques Gannett third, Picot number 24 in 4th, but charging, 24 Ruben McMurder 5th, and number 1 Steve Crevier back in 6th. A lap later, McMurder crashed at the hairpin, ending his chances for a top finish. In the closing stages of the race, the intense heat with temperatures around 100 degrees Fahrenheit became a factor. With 4 laps to go, Mercier, who had a commanding lead, crashed in the S's, handing the lead to number 228 Jeff Gaynor, with 21 Pascal Picot a close second and charging to the front. At the checkered flag, it was Jeff Gaynor winning his first Canadian Superbike National of the Year, with number 21 Pascal Picot in second, 999 Jacques Gannett picking up his third place finish of the year. Number 1 Steve Crevier came home 4th on the Kawasaki, and 163 Benoit Pilon on a Yamaha OW01 rounded out the top 5. Many of Canada's top Superbike riders now head south of the border for the AMA National at the Mid-Ohio Circuit, before joining the Canadian Series at round 4 out at Calgary's Race City Speedway, and then on over the Rockies to round number 5 at Westwood Motorsport Park. At Shannonville Motorsport Park, this is Pat Gonzalez reporting for Motoworld.
Well, there was another road race last weekend that was highlighted by crashing, and this week's studio guest, Team Suzuki's Mike Smith, will tell us all about it. When we come back, we'll have an exclusive interview with one of the young lions of U.S. road racing. Stick with us. Motoworld set. Mike Smith, a member of the Valvoline Suzuki road race team. Mike, welcome to Motoworld. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Larry.
Now, most observers of the sport of road racing tout you as being one of the up-and-coming young lions. How do you see yourself in comparison to, let's say, riders of same age group?
Well, I'm definitely in the top 10 in the U.S. right now, and we just keep working at it and keep trying, and maybe I can get to the top of the U.S. and the world soon.
Well, I think top 10 is being very modest. I've seen you race, and I know you're much faster than that. Last week, as a matter of fact, part of the winningest team in endurance racing, you guys raced up in Michigan and had a rather unusual experience. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, Larry, we were up there, and we had a 6-hour endurance race that was held in conjunction with we're a pro series, and we had a crash on the last lap of the 6-hour endurance race, and which until we had four laps in the lead before the end of the race, so we basically had 3 laps at the end, even though we crashed on the last lap.
The conditions up there were not ideal for racing either.
Well, no. Sunday we had some rain in the Formula USA race, which made things very slippery and very wet, and I got in definitely some big slides, so it was definitely not normal conditions.
Which brings up another point. You're doing double duty. You race endurance racing on Saturday, then Sunday you turn around and race the USA Series.
Yeah, we definitely have a full weekend of racing during the We're a Pro Series.
What do you know, most of the road racers today started out in dirt tracking. That was their background, and then they switched over to pavement. But you didn't do that. Advantage, disadvantage, what are your thoughts?
Well, actually, I had a little bit of dirt bike experience or motocross experience, but I think that it helped some, but I don't have the real professional level of dirt experience. So basically it's just a want-to type of deal, and that's what I wanted to do, and road racing was it, and that's what I went to do.
Something that I know that you do that you can really be proud of is an off-track activity, and I'm talking about the campaign that you're involved with anti-drugs. Can you tell me just a little bit about that?
Yeah, what we do, Larry, is we set up schools that are close to the tracks that we go and race, and we try to present something for the kids to associate with, and I think racing and motorcycles does that, and the kids really seem to like it, and they seem to get something out of it. What we do is we go to these schools, and sometimes we have presentations of anti-drugs and give out posters and talk with the kids and try to answer any questions that we can.
Well, Mike, this year you're in first place in endurance racing, first place in the USA Series. I hope this is the year that you get the recognition that you deserve.
Maybe so, Larry.
Well, that's Team Suzuki's national champion, Mike Smith. Up next, this week's tech tip from the Motorcycle Mechanics Institute. Here's Bernie Thompson with some pointers on what to do when your bike won't start.
When your bike doesn't start, what do? Check the conditions of the spark plugs. They should show signs of being wet with fresh fuel. If not, check for fuel delivery. Check that there is fuel present in the float bowl. If the plugs are wet, check for a spark. Check for spark by grounding the plug against the cylinder head. Do not hold the plug near the spark plug hole. This could ignite the air-fuel mixture. Use a clothespin to hold the spark plug wire. This way, you won't get shocked. You should see a fat blue spark. If you do, check for compression. A compression gauge is the tool that is usually used. If you do not have one, put your finger over the spark plug hole. You should feel a strong pressure when the engine comes up on the compression stroke. If you do, the problem is most likely in the ignition timing and needs to be adjusted or checked by you or your dealer. For the Motorcycle Mechanics Institute, I'm Bernie Thompson.
Still to come on this edition of MotoC National Championship Motocross Series has been an up-and-down affair. Defending champ Jeff Stanton had the points lead. He gave it up to former champ Jeff Ward, then Ward gave it back. Well, that brings us to the season finale. It was scorching hot. Ward figured that put the odds in his favor.
Well, it's going to be real hot today, so I think being in shape is going to be a good factor. And I've shown before at Redbud and a few other races that I wore those guys down. So hopefully that's in their mind. And, you know, I just got to do what it takes. I just got to, you know, I can't give up no matter what. You know, I'll pass out before I give up.
Was Stanton worried about the heat? Well, it appears Stanton was not worried about anything. With a 9-point cushion, a second and a third in the two motos would give the Team Honda star the 250 crown for the second year in a row. Anything less than that, coupled with a pair of moto wins for Ward, and Ward would be the champ. With the first moto underway, both riders were close to where they needed to be. Stanton was in third, Ward in second, with Ward's teammate Johnny O'Mara out front. When the trio reappeared from the back part of the track, Ward and O'Mara had traded places. Now, the Kawasaki game plan called for Ward to extend the lead while O'Mara held Stanton back. Problem was, Stanton had a game plan of his own. He blew by O'Mara and into second place. Ward never gave up, but Stanton was fueled with pure adrenaline. The defending champ eventually took the lead, and Ward off camera, in a last-ditch effort, crashed hard. Stanton got the win. Ward kept his championship hopes alive by finishing second. Moto number 2, Team Suzuki's Larry Ward was the leader, but the handwriting was on the wall. A 10th place was all Stanton needed to lock up the 250 National crown. With his helmet on backwards and 2 flat tires, Stanton could get 10th. Ward, though, never stopped trying. The multi-time national champ, hurting from that first moto crash, fought from out of the pack to take the lead, and in the end, the moto win. Stanton, well, when the Michigan rider crossed the finish line in third, the title for the second year in a row was his. Having won the Camel Supercross Series earlier this year, all that remains for Stanton to win now is the 500cc crown. And what does Jeff think of that?
It's important. Nobody's ever won all 3 championships in 1 year, and it'd be a hell of a task, and I think I'm ready for it.
Here are the final standings in the 250cc National Championship Series. O'Mara wrapped up the season in the number 5 spot. Damon Bradshaw finished 4th, Mike LaRocco 3rd, and as you have just seen, Jeff Ward was 2nd, and the 1990 champ is Jeff Stanton from Sherwood, Michigan.
Well, the 500 Series gets underway August 12th at Washougal, Washington. We'll see if Stanton is indeed ready. Now, when we last checked the 125s, Guy Cooper was sneaking up on series points leader Jean-Michel Bayle. The French world champ had an answer for that.
try to make a good start, like I make in the start of the season. Last week I lost a lot of points because I started 2 times last and I crashed in the second start. So what I want to do is try to make a good start, and I think after I have the speed for win.
Also with speed to win, Guy Cooper, who was in second place in the standings, just 9 points back. Defending champ Mike Kudrowski in third. And holding fourth in the series, Kawasaki's Jeff Matasevich. There are a multitude of other good riders in the 125 class, but those 4 are the cream of the crop. When the gate dropped for moto number 1, though, most of the cream was off the pace. Bale momentarily had the whole shot, but Jimmy Eichel on the white Yamaha found a little better line and led the field. Cooper, Kudrowski, and Matasevich were back in the pack. It did not take too many laps, however, to rectify that. However, by the time traffic was disposed of, Bale was gone. The Frenchman easily collected the win in moto number 1. The second moto, and a different story. This time it was Matasevich out front, being pursued by Kudrowski. Matasevich, who has never been fond of eastern tracks and high temperatures and humidity, apparently has learned to cope. The Kawasaki rider never gave an inch in winning moto number 2. Kudrowski, Bale, and Cooper followed Matasevich across the line. At day's end, the 125 championship standings looked like this. Bale, who took the overall win at Troy, is on top, followed by Cooper, who is now 14 points off the championship chase. Before we leave Troy, Ohio, here's a quick update on one of Motocross's all-time heroes, Rick the Magic Man Johnson. At Troy, Johnson, who was riding his way into shape, carded a pair of 7th-place finishes. His wrist, injured over a year ago, requires constant therapy and stimulation. Johnson admits he has a long way to go. My money says he'll make it.
6 races remain in the 125 series. There's still plenty of time for Cooper and maybe even Kudrowski to catch up. When we come back, we'll turn our attention to the AMA Camel Pro Dirt Track Series. Stay tuned to ESPN, your total sports network. The last few weeks, Mother Nature has not been cooperating with the Camel Pro Dirt Track Tour. 3 successive weekends have been rained out, including last weekend's event, which ironically was the makeup date for the previously rained out DuQuoin Mile.
Sunday's event in DuQuoin was going along smoothly under threatening skies. Unfortunately for the fans who braved the elements, the skies opened up after 3 laps of the 25-lap main. Number 20, Chris Carr, and number 53, Tim Mertens, were contesting the lead at the time of the stoppage. After a wait-and-see procedure, the track was deemed to be unsuited for high-speed competition, so the race was called and the purse was paid out based on the qualifying order. Although Chris Carr did get the big money, the Harley factory rider and the rest of the field did not earn any Camel Pro Championship points. So with the DuQuoin event officially rained out, the series will now be a 16-race affair. In addition, the standings remain unchanged since the last event run, the Lima, Ohio half-mile on June 30th. Chris Carr still holds a 13-point lead over Harley teammate Scott Parker. Next on the schedule is the Peoria TT. Now, history tells us Carr should increase his points lead over Parker in Peoria. He's won that event the last 2 years.
Well, the current battle for the Camel Pro Championship being waged by Harley teammates Chris Carr and Scott Parker is typical of Harley's long-standing dominance of the sport. Now, in part 2 of our look at dirt track racing, Dennis Torres looks at Harley-Davidson's dominant influence on the current dirt track scene.
In part 1 of our look at dirt track racing, we showed you the dominant numbers Harley-Davidson has racked up over the years. Nobody can match their championships and race wins. But the Harley-Davidson influence extends beyond mere numbers. The persona of Harley followers is nothing short of a phenomenon. On the other side of the coin, most would admit that the sport itself is on a downslide, or even the most optimistic feel it's on a plateau. While the sport is experiencing some down years, Harley fanaticism, though, is riding an all-time high. Case in point, requests from dealers for Harley factory riders Carr and Parker to sit down with prospective buyers has tripled over the last 2 years. So the obvious question, what will it take to attract a broader base of followers? How do we add to the already loyal Harley fanatics?
National TV. I would like to see exposure on television. We haven't had that. I think that would be a tremendous help to us. Within my own department, of course, I'm going to be like any other manager and say more resources, more money. But I think that, like you said, that one thing that sticks out that definitely would help. I think some national exposure on television would certainly help. We have the loyal following. And we're getting to that loyal following. We need to get beyond them. We've got to go outside of the people who have been interested in dirt track racing for years. They're coming back. The numbers are slightly larger than what they've been in the last few years. But what we need is to build that up even more. And like I said, they're the loyal following. They've always been there. We need to get to the other people. And I think national TV is what would do that.
Television requires industry support in the form of advertising revenue to defray production costs. With only one manufacturer involved, that's an unrealistic expectation, although there could be some relief in that area on the horizon.
I understand that there's a possibility, I don't know how good of a chance, but I understand there's a possibility that next year Honda may have a little bit of a program for the privateers and maybe do some development. I don't think it'll be a full-on factory team, but they may have some kind of a development program and a contingency program for the privateers, which would really help us out. It would give us a little bit more money to do our own development.
A renewed interest by Honda would definitely prove to be a shot in the arm. But until we have 3 or 4 factories competing against each other, it will be hard to acquire the advertising support needed for consistent TV exposure. So what this all means is that dirt track racing will probably remain the best kept secret in motorsports. For those of you who haven't attended a dirt track national, go out and see one. What's that old advertising slogan? Try it, you'll like it. And besides, you'll be helping to preserve a part of Americana. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Dennis Torres.
Still to come, our calendar of upcoming events, this week's trail tip, and the latest in moto news. We'll put the wraps on this edition of Motoworld right after these messages. One way to enjoy trail riding on a continuing basis, and that's the safe way. Here's Randy Hawkins, Team Suzuki's 2-time National Enduro Champion, to explain.
Safety is one of the most important things to remember for a professional racer or trail rider. Let me give you some safety hints. When riding, your helmet, boots, and goggles are the most important pieces of safety equipment. One mistake a lot of riders make is riding alone. You should never try to ride alone. And if you do so, tell someone where you are, so you know that help is available if necessary. For riding a trail, be extra careful in corners and ride them slowly, because you never know what lies ahead. Remember, only fools try to show off while riding. The fastest way to get hurt is not to ride safely. Be smart and ride safe. For Team Suzuki, I'm Randy Hawkins. See you next week on Motoworld.
Well, that's good advice from Randy Hawkins, and I hope all you trail riders out there were listening. And speaking of Randy Hawkins, the Suzuki Star is part of another regular Motoworld feature, Moto News. Hawkins, Kevin Hines, Jeff Burdett, Charles Halcomb, Jimmy Lewis, and Dave Bertram will make up the U.S. World Trophy team at the International 6 Days Enduro in Västerås, Sweden. The U.S. has never won the World Trophy competition. Hopefully, this year's team will change that. In international road racing, there's good news and bad news from Japan. Flying Fred Merkel, shown here earlier this year in Brainerd, Minnesota, suffered a broken neck while practicing for the 8 hours of Suzuka. Merkel was released from a Japanese hospital with 2 fractured vertebrae in his neck. He is expected to make a full recovery and is not expected to miss more than 1 round of the Superbike World Championship. The good news from Suzuka is an American was on the winning team. 4-time world champion Eddie Lawson added another achievement to his already impressive career by taking the victory with Japanese ace Tadahiko Taira. After at least a decade of planning, August 16th will mark the grand opening of the Motorcycle Heritage Museum located at AMA headquarters in Westerville, Ohio. The museum opening is just one part of a 4-day motorcycling extravaganza that begins August 14th, known as Heritage Homecoming 1990. Among other dignitaries, comedian Jay Leno is expected to be on hand to participate.
Okay, we're going to be having about 15 or 20 exhibit cases in this hallway and the first hallway. We're also developing a system of curbs to keep people away from the motorcycles instead of these rope stanchions. The curbs will keep people away and yet allow a complete visibility of each motorcycle. And it's also going to be developed so that it's going to be interchangeable over the years as the exhibits change.
Additional information is available from the AMA. Call 614-891-2425. Well, if you make it to Heritage Homecoming, be sure to look me up. Until then, for all of us here at Motoworld, I'm Larry Myers reminding you that if you ride your motorcycle to Heritage Homecoming, be sure you keep your wheels on the ground and your feet on the pegs. We'll see you next week right here on ESPN.